When I first met this very talented woman nearly a decade ago, I said then it was only going to be a matter of time before she exceeded me in skill and talent in the field in which we were both working. I'm so happy to say that I was absolutely correct. In August of last year, it was announced that she had been appointed as the new executive director of Chicago State Foundation. The very woman who just years earlier made a major career pivot, taking a job as a contractor to achieve that lane shift, was now the new leader succeeding yours truly. The employee was now the peer, further cementing her place as a full-fledged leader in her very own right. Some might call her lucky, but those of us who have witnessed her ascension to the C-suite know that her success was anything but. Please join me in the face of Chicago's now generation of leadership, my thought partner, former employee, and friend, Melanie Sillas, in the arena right now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Hello, Melanie Sillas.
Hello.
Hello, Executive Director, Chicago State Foundation. Hello, old friend. You and I go back. We have both changed, but I think your change has been more dramatic, and at least for me, more interesting to watch. But we'll get to all that. Let's begin at the beginning, shall we?
Sure.
When and where were you born?
I was born in Belleville, Illinois in 1983.
And do you remember what hospital?
Yes, at Memorial Hospital.
Is it still open?
It is.
Oh, I was born at a Memorial Hospital in Detroit back in the 60s. They closed it. Tell me about the man and woman who created you.
Sure. So my mother, her name is Doris Sillas, and she was actually born in Alabama, but her family moved to East St. Louis, actually on their way to Chicago, stopped there to visit family.
And just never
And just
continued.
never left, yep. And then my dad is born and raised in East St. Louis, so
Okay.
that's where they met. And then they moved. My mom moved to Muscuda before I was born, so I was raised
Muscuda?
Illinois. That's
Okay.
where I was raised.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you have any siblings?
I do. So my parents were never married, but both of my parents had a daughter before they had me. I was an accident baby, actually.
A beautiful accident.
Yes, yes. My parents, my mom was 33 and my dad was 56 when I was born. So,
I'm not good with math.
I
but
know.
That's a space.
so
Okay.
one sister's 15 years older than me, and my other sister was 32 years older than me. Yeah,
Are
that's
you close?
important.
But you know, it's very important. And it's
Yeah.
also how every family, there is no one definition.
Yeah.
So you're close with both of your sisters?
I was. My sister that was 32 years older than me, she actually passed away in 2018. But we actually had a good relationship and stayed close all the way up until, I always like to think of her as a second mom, but more fun,
Okay.
if that makes sense,
It
because we
does.
got to do all the
Yes.
things that moms don't have to do. But I did spend quite a bit of time with her growing up and
Fair.
in adulthood as well.
Fair. Where did you attend high school?
I went to Muscuda Community High School.
Was
So
it the
all of
only
my
high school
schools,
in Muscuda?
yes, all of my schools before college were called Muscuda. So there's
Keep
that.
it simple.
Yes.
Okay. And then when you began to, I suspect, break out, where did you attend college?
I went to the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign.
Excellent. So we talk about, I've known you now, I think this is year 10.
Wow,
If I'm
it
not
is, because
it
it's
is.
2023. We're
Uh-huh.
coming up on it in
is.
August.
Yes. So let's begin there. Let's continue there. In 2023, our paths crossed when you interviewed for a contract position at Chicago Urban League, one that would move you from the program side of the house to the fund development side of the house. I'd like you, and I'm going to lean back,
Sure.
but I want you to walk me through, because that's a good benchmark, and so much about you, so much in your professional and personal life as someone who's witnessed the journey has changed. Walk me through some key personal and professional highs and lows from the day we met in August of 2023 to today where you sit here.
Sure. So I actually would start a little bit before that and just talk about how I got interested in fundraising to begin with.
Okay.
So after I went to college, I went to law school initially here in DePaul University, and I didn't do well at all. And I hadn't really thought about a plan B because I had, in my opinion, had kind of floated through life. It was always said I was going to go to college, and one day I said I was going to be a lawyer, and everybody liked how that sounded, and so I never thought about doing anything else.
Okay.
So I got to law school. I didn't do well, but I had been volunteering at the Cabrini Green Legal Aid. So I knew I wanted to do something in the public interest, but I didn't know exactly how I would do that. So I am deciding I'm not going to go back to law school. My mom was like, you can always come home or you can stay, whatever you want to do. She wanted to be supportive in that. And so maybe stupidly, maybe smartly, I posted on my sorority's Yahoo group that I was pretty much lost in searching, thought I might want to do something in the public interest. And so I got kind of 3 different responses to that. One was, did you know you just put all your business on this Yahoo group to hundreds of women that you don't know well? Another person who reached out to me and said that, that's great that you want to do something in the public interest, but that's not a plan B career. You need to know for sure that's what you want to do and be committed to it, which is absolutely true, but didn't feel particularly supportive at the time.
Yeah.
And the third call I got was talking through, well, if you want to do something in public interest, what would you want to do? And I said, well, I don't know. I have this degree in English. Maybe I could write. And so I ended up subsequently pursuing a degree in public service, and also she helped me with 2 internships with nonprofit organizations to do grant writing. And all of that is important because fast forward, I finished my master's and I think I'm just going to go out and get a fundraising job. And it didn't happen like that because people want your track record of success before they'll let you do it.
It's a dollars and cents business.
Absolutely. In retrospect, I might have been applying for roles that were a bit too senior, but either way, that's what I thought I wanted to do.
Sure.
And I wasn't getting jobs doing that. So I coordinated community internships for a while, and through a relationship got a job at Chicago Youth Centers where I had 1 foot in program evaluation, and then I was allowed to write government grants, which if you know.
The most fun.
The most fun grants, the most tedious, the least creative. And so it was not getting me.
Wasn't hitting that spot.
It wasn't hitting the spot. Through that same relationship, that person connected me to you about a fundraising role at Chicago Urban League. And so I met you and your team, and I left saying, I want to work for him because he's going to teach me everything I need to know. Downside is it's a contract role, and so you're talking about leaving your full-time job with benefits, and I was doing the job well, so there was no reason for me to leave that to go do this thing that may or may not take off.
Yeah.
And you actually were hiring me also to write government grants because that was the skill set that you were looking for on your team. And so I talked to my mom about it, and I said, this might be as close as I can get to being on a development team for now. And so she said, go for it. We'll make it work. We'll do the math for, you having insurance and that type of thing. And my mom was a whole other story, but always just very supportive in what I wanted to do. And so I took the job.
Yeah. You took not only the job, and I think on this program, I'm always looking for paths and journeys. And people always want something for nothing. And when you get on a path in your career and decide it's time to pivot, it comes with sacrifice, but it also comes with, you've got to bet on you. And it may not have worked, but if it didn't, you would have what I know about you now. But that one pivot for you, and we knew, even, literally in the cold open, I've said it to you for years. I've said it, so I've been consistent. When we first met you, I went, which is why now I'm in television. I'm like, she's done, she's won, it's hers, and I'm thrilled about it. But we knew it then. But I want to mark that moment because there's so many folks viewing us who go, can I make the change? Is it without risks? And I think you proved it's not without risk.
No.
But it began with saying, I want this, and I have to take a side step back and risk certain things and call in my support so I can do it. But what is it? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. But there were also things that you did over those 10 years. And that was, and I watched some of it, and it still happens now. You have been very intentional in a way that I have found just fascinating. You can step out of you in a way that many of us cannot, and go, I'm lacking this, so I need to do that, I need to do this, I need to get in that. Talk about, because you know what I'm referring to, those very intentional steps. You didn't just make the pivot successfully. You went, I'm going to gather as many certifications, leadership. I know I'm a shy introvert, and you were fantastic, but you knew to move from being very successful as a development officer, then senior development officer, then assistant director. You had to talk to people and be in the rooms because it's a relationship business. So talk about those intentional steps between 2013 and now that you took and continue to take for your own professional and personal growth, which could include mental wellness.
Sure. So once I took the position writing government grants, that got me just close enough to a fundraising operation to realize how much I didn't know. And so I thought maybe I needed more training. So initially, I got a certificate in fundraising management at North Park University. And I will say to this day, those 5 classes were more useful to me than my whole master's degree, because it was just the 5, core topics that you needed to cover.
Yes, this is not esoteric. This is how the business works.
Exactly. Yeah. And, it led me to ask the right questions. And so at that point, I've always been naturally good at writing. So writing government grants at that point, to be honest, I could do that in my sleep. So
and you were.
And I was. So that gave me the space to start asking the right questions about, can I do other things? So then one of my classes was around corporate and foundation. So then I got to write a Polk Brothers Foundation proposal.
You remember it.
I do, because I was so excited when it actually got awarded. Because it feels
it's the best
different.
Feeling. Doesn't it feel different? Yes.
So I'll never forget my first foundation proposal was definitely to the Polk Brothers Foundation. But just by asking questions and saying, I need to work on this for a class, I got to do it. I took a major gifts class in capital campaigns. And at that time, the Urban League was gearing up for a capital campaign. So I remember coming in your office and saying, could I write the giving table for that? And you're like, sure, knock yourself out.
And then you brought it and I went, oh.
Right.
Okay.
Right, because I was just excited to actually put it to use and to be close enough.
And we put it to great use.
Yeah, for sure. And I also did the Emerging Leaders Leadership Program, and that was really from the encouragement of some of the other program directors, and they were telling me, you really should get involved in the movement, you really should be thinking about your next step.
This is the National Urban Leagues.
This is the National Urban Leagues program. Okay. Because, at that point, I was really building up my skills, but I still was kind of wanting to cling to the things that I wanted to do, which is, if you could sit in a room and write and never talk to anyone.
You used to say that to us. If I could just sit in my safe space and you all leave me alone.
Yes, but that's just, it's just not how fundraising works. Yeah. So I think that getting involved in that program not only allowed me to see that Chicago Urban League was one of the best movements in the whole movement, but also really kind of to understand my skills in comparison to some of my peers and how much knowledge I had to offer to other people who were working in the fundraising space. So I think that experience really just helped me to think more strategically about what do I want to do next. And ultimately, it led me to feeling like I had done all I could do at the Urban League.
I remember the conversation.
And a little bit burnt out in the sense that once you start asking all those questions and taking on stretch projects and doing other things, people expect you to do it. Yes. when you feel like it and when you don't. Yeah. So I left Urban League and I went to the University of Chicago to be on the corporate and foundation relations team. And there, I thought I wanted just focus on that, and I learned that I did not, one. But I did well in the job. I got to know a lot about the university. I got to work with their units that were community facing, so I still was connected to the nonprofit space here in Chicago in a lot of ways because of the community partners that the university had. Yeah. And I had a good relationship with my boss there as well, who helped me to get a mentor from a woman of color who was a senior level person in the higher ed space. And so, while I didn't love the focus on one just one area of fundraising. I would say I had support and mentorship and guidance and people taking an interest in what I was doing there as well. Yeah. And actually my boss at the time ended up telling me that she knew I was overqualified for the job when she hired me, but she thought the mentor and the other things would hold me there, except they didn't.
They didn't. Oh, she and I talked about it. We both lamented together. I want to, and we just don't ever get enough time. I believe because you were ramping up, you had become full-time within a year. Mm-hmm. Was there the significant loss in your life? Was that 2015?
So 2015. So right before I became senior development officer at the Urban League, my mother had 2 bouts with cancer, and ultimately she did pass away from it. But the second time when it came back, you know, she had made her peace with transitioning before everyone else had. So that was a really pivotal time in my life.
Because your career was...
My career is taking off. And honestly, I did some of my best work while home was kind of not so great. But I really attribute my mom to a lot of that. Because when I wanted to, you know, put my career on the back burner because I knew that my time with her was finite, she was pushing me to go to work. I remember I drove home every weekend from about a 5-hour drive from Chicago to Mascoutah every weekend while she was in hospice. And one weekend I stayed until Monday, and she said, "What day is it?" I said, "It's Monday." And she said, "You're supposed to be at work." So she just, you know, I didn't like it at the time, but I thank her, and what a selfless thing to encourage me to still live my life and pursue my goals and stay on that track of doing my best work when it might have at first been a distraction, but it was what it was meant for me to be doing, and it prepared me to keep going and keep doing without having that backup plan of, you know, you can always come home when you have that.
And that's the other thing you've talked about. There have been a few. We'll ignore 1.5 of the 3 people back at the sorority Yahoo. That person, but half of the second and all of the third person. But talk about some of the earth angels who you have been able to lean on, who have seen something in you.
Sure.
You may not mention me. I know. In my world, I'm like, of course. No, but seriously, talk about people we know or may not know who at these pivotal moments, because that was a pivotal time for you.
Sure.
And you've proven it by your conversation. You're good at, even if it's difficult, not being so prideful that you won't tap into your sources. Talk about some of those people.
So I actually would consider those 3 people angels back from the sorority day. Even the first person that said, "Do you know that you just told your whole business to hundreds of women that you don't know well?" Just because, you know, I look back to that fearlessness, and I can't say that I always still live that way, but part of me longs to cling to that person who is not afraid to say, "I need help," and I'm looking for direction. Because if I didn't have people later in life who took an interest in me and my success, I wouldn't be here, right? So, you know, I still look at it as a positive that I was, you know, bold enough to just say, you know what, being in a sorority, I'm a first generation college student. There's supposed to be a network.
And that's what you said you were, so.
And I need help. So, you know, maybe more people should do it. And who, you know, maybe if other people would have done it, they could have gotten guidance in the same way. So I do consider that still a positive. Also, just the work of public service is tough. Like, especially being in human service organizations, it's very complex. Or trying to solve problems that have, you know,
deep roots.
May not solve in this lifetime. That's hard work. And so while her delivery didn't feel particularly supportive at the time, that was real talk that I needed to hear. That, like, just because you're not going to be a lawyer, like, you know, being in public service is
Don't
not
think this is going to be easy.
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart. And so, you know, I hold that too.
Okay.
And then in terms of the person that helped me with the 2 internships, I still talk to her to this day. At Allstate now, on the foundation. And so every time I run into her, I'm like, you played such a huge role in the start of my fundraising career.
Oh, wonderful.
And she didn't know me from the sea of the other 100 women. She probably saw this baby post on the Yahoo group and tell all her business.
Tell all her business.
and she called me. We met for coffee.
Oh, wonderful.
And she, you know, took an interest in me when she didn't have to do that, because it could have, you know, easily gone into the other sea of emails. Yeah. I would say that you were a mentor as well. Once I got my first a traditional fundraising role for sure, because you could have told me to stay in my lane, but you didn't. So you gave me opportunities to try things that I really only had textbook knowledge around, not true skill to do just yet. So if I didn't get those opportunities, I wouldn't have felt like I wanted to go have focus, or felt like I had done all I could do.
Yeah.
So I credit you with, I had 2 promotions while there pretty quickly. So, without that time, I'm not sitting here. Because every role after that, I think, people took me seriously because I had done so many different things.
I have a feeling that there are some folks you meet and you go, even in our industry, in human service, you go, this intervention is absolutely key. And then there are others you meet and go, they are going to find their way. It's great for us to be a part of, to be supportive, but they are going to find their way. I always felt that about you. I have one more question for you in this segment.
Okay.
One thing our growing number of viewers would be surprised to know about you. What's that one thing?
Something they would be surprised to know about me? That's a really good question. I think they probably would be surprised to know that I'm pretty good at building relationships, because I don't love public speaking. I don't love a lot of the external facing things and the bright and shiny that people look for in a fundraising professional. I wouldn't say it's not my brand.
Not your jam.
It's not my jam, but I do think, I learned to be me. And authentically me is my jam.
Come on.
And it works too. And so I think people would be surprised to know that, because, they think that I'm shy or that I don't like to talk, and it's not that. It's the relationship piece that I'm strong at, and I can do that better one-on-one or small groups. And so I can still be an effective fundraiser. I can still be fun to be with. I can still be a great leader without being the extrovert that people would expect a fundraiser to be.
As proven. I knew we were going to have a great time. We talk and connect. You have become a peer. You are a part of my personal board. We have conversations. We talk shop, advice and counsel, and it's equally from both sides. So I've always been a big fan, but it is so great to sit here and know that Chicago State Foundation, an organization I cared so deeply for, 3 pivotal years there, the beauty that someone I know has that talent but that care for the audiences that we serve means the world. You and I are not going to be finished. This is, okay, see, it's the look. This segment is ending. Okay. Melanie, I want to say thank you for your fearlessness and honesty.
Okay.
We have one more segment. Brace yourself. We'll be right back after this with our final segment, 3 for the Road. Everyone sits here and acts like they're like, I'm not going to do anything.
The politics, the problems, and the people. Political Forum offers local legislators and political newsmakers an opportunity to participate in a one-on-one interview to discuss the most important political headlines in Chicago. Join us for Political Forum Wednesday at 7 p.m. on KNTV 19 and streaming at knTV.org. The world is watching Chicago. Chicago is watching Political Forum.
Melanie Sillas, also known to me as Bianca. Remember Bianca?
I do.
We won't say This is the final segment called 3 for the Road, and this is how it works. I know you've seen the show, but I'm going to explain it for the few viewers who may not have.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you 3 questions. You're going to give me 3 answers.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Let's begin. If you could have dinner with any person, living or dead, who would you choose and why?
I would choose my paternal grandfather.
Why?
So I never met him. I remember I mentioned the age gap of my parents. So he had passed away before I was born. But his children and everyone who knew him, they all attribute their best qualities to him. So I just kind of wish I would have met him, because it's kind of like seeing the good of him in other people. And I feel like he's also been on my heart as of late, because I recently got a phone call from my dad's sister who is 91 years old.
Wow.
I haven't seen or talked to in years, but she was just hoping that my phone number still worked. And she doesn't text or email, but she mailed me some letters and pictures.
She's 91.
And she's 91 and still getting around. And so, to hear her even still talking about him at 91, I just, I feel like that's a missed opportunity.
Got it. Good first answer.
Thanks.
Ready for question 2?
Okay.
It should be easier. Do you have any regrets?
I don't. I think that every mistake, every misstep has set me up for my next thing. And so without those mistakes or missteps, I wouldn't have been prepared for where I am now. So I don't have any.
All right, 2 good answers.
Okay.
One more question. One piece of advice present-day Melanie would have given her 21-year-old self.
Probably to stay fearless and asking for what you want. We just laughed and joked about me getting on that Yahoo group, but life has a way of making you want to be more conservative about the choices you make and how you put yourself out there to the world. And so don't lose that quality is what I would tell 21 Melanie.
And as you could tell when we used to do budgets together, numbers. I'm going to ask another question. So I'm going to do 4 for the road.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask 2 more. You just said something, and I have this theory my friends and I from University of Michigan undergrad talk about. You have this period where you're fearless, and then you garner, especially the first of us, those who are the first, we garner some success, and then we start to become very fear-averted. The very things that got us there, we start to be very careful, very cautious, respectability politics. Have you found that happening as your career took off? And do you find yourself now pushing back to get back to, or to remember that fearless young woman who sent things out to the entire Yahoo group?
Sure. I think that for a while there, I was pretty brave, but once I got to my first executive level role, then I became a little bit shyer with asking for help because, we talk about me being intentional and participating in leadership programs and training and all of that. But when I got my first executive level role, I did not see that coming at all. I was at University of Chicago and we agreed, probably not the best place for me in terms of the role that I was doing. When I got a call from Andy Zapp, who had been the CEO of the Urban League when I was there. When we were all there, now at World Business Chicago, and she had a director of development position open. And so I left University of Chicago to get a director of development role, and that was to me the height of what I was going to do. I'll sit there for a while.
Good. Yeah, this
I was
is great.
happy
No
to
assistant in
have
front
that.
of it. Yeah.
Exactly. And not 4 months later, I was promoted to vice president, and so that was not intentional. But she believed I could do it, so. I had to believe I could do it, and she and I have stayed connected ever since. I worked there almost 4 years, and I went to Chicago United, and then she reached out to me about the role that I'm in now.
Those are the angels. That's an angel that we both share. Melanie Sillas, guess what?
What?
That's it.
I did it.
You did it. Your role. Melanie, I'm so proud to know you, so proud to watch your growth, so glad that our paths intersected. And I've said this to you offline. I won't say the words here because they're colorful, but there's no breaking up. We're together forever. Yay! Thank you very much for sitting with me and our viewers in conversation and in community. Let me leave you with a final thought for the road, courtesy of Audre Lorde. When I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid. Until next time, take good care of you and each other. Good night. So you're not going to talk to me? You're not going to say anything? Just going to be just silent.
I'm like, is it over?
It's over. Bravo.
Nice.